you can work 24 hours a day, or you can work 12 hours a day, or you can work 8 or 9 efficient hours a day and be okay.
Welcome to Becoming the GC, the podcast that dives deep into the journeys of general counsels and chief legal officers, uncovering the insights and strategies that help define their success. Hosted by Joe Schul, founder of Inside Counsel Academy. We share real-life stories and practical advice from successful GCs, guiding you on your journey to the top. Tune in and discover what it takes to become the exceptional legal leader your organization needs.
Hey, this is Joe Schul. We're talking today with Bart Peach, and I think you're really going to enjoy listening. We talked about how he went from the baseball diamond to the boardroom and how a sports injury launched a legal career. We talked about how AI is changing the legal game and what every GC should know, and the real story behind work-life balance at the top. So stay with me to the end, and I'll share my biggest takeaways. Here's Bart's bio, okay? Bart Peach is General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer at Unio Health Partners, which provides management services to gastroenterology, urology, and radiation oncology practices with over 180 providers across California. With almost 20 years of healthcare experience, Bart previously served as Group General Counsel at DaVita's Kidney Care Division, overseeing nearly 900 dialysis clinics. And we talk about his DaVita experience and mine in this episode. Bart specializes in healthcare M&A, regulatory compliance, complex contract negotiations, and has successfully navigated complex transactions, including company acquisitions and major litigation settlements. So with that, let's get into the interview. Hey, Bart, it's great to see you.
Yeah, you as well, Joe.
Bart,
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed in preparing that you and I both spent time in Illinois, Southern Illinois in your case.
Yes.
Is that where you grew
twice. No, Southern Indiana, but I got drafted to play professional baseball out of high school and then ended up in junior college in Southern Illinois first. Then I went to Murray State and ended up back there for law school. So I had 2 stints in Southern Illinois.
Oh, great. How long did your baseball career last?
Well, it lasted right until my first year of college when I was playing volleyball and messed my shoulder up.
Oh,
So,
were you a pitcher?
I was, and then I was able to thankfully have surgery and play for 4 years at Murray. So it paid for undergraduate school, thankfully.
Oh, nice. Are you
Yeah.
a baseball fan still to this day?
I don't know that I was ever necessarily a fan, but yeah, I still follow it.
Yeah. Good. Okay, great. So that's baseball. What inspired you to pursue a career in law? When did that happen for you?
That exact situation. So got drafted. I had an attorney who was my agent at the time. And after I got hurt, I ended up having to go in front of the HMO board of my mom's healthcare system that she had. And it was, 8 people sitting around a round table, and I'm 18 years old. And I had to explain to them why this wasn't a sports injury. It was a life injury. And because declined to pay for the surgery that I needed to be able to continue and play baseball. So,
and probably continue, maybe this was part of the argument, just continue like the activities of daily living.
absolutely. But the story that I told was about the car that I had, and waxing it out in front of my body made my shoulder slip out of socket. I'd have pain for 3 or 4 weeks. So long story short, at the end of the conversation, the lady at the end of the table was crying, and my attorney had his jaw on the floor. And afterwards, he said, maybe you should consider law school. So I thereafter realized that the healthcare system in some regards was slightly broken. It wasn't always about the patient. And secondarily, that I had an interest in going into law to help try to change that.
Wow, beautiful. Here we are still trying to fix it. So you went to law school and you got your first job, law firm.
I
Right.
did, yeah.
Tell me about the point in which you decided to go in-house for the first time.
Yeah, so when I was in law school at Southern Illinois, I ended up working for the general counsel of Southern Illinois Healthcare, a great guy named Bill Sherwood. And Bill was a great mentor. He had been doing it for a long time and just said, hey, if you want this job, if you eventually want to be a GC, go be in a law firm for 7 or 8 years, understand the law as best you can, diverse of a background as you could possibly get, do as much as you can, litigate, do contracts, do research briefs, do everything that you can do, because in a GC role, they throw everything at you and you never know what's going to come through the door. So I took that advice as gospel. I ended up going to a law firm for almost exactly 7 years from the time that I graduated, and then took my first role at DaVita.
Wow. What kind of work did you do at the firm?
Mostly healthcare. So my first firm was very focused on hospital work. So they were in-house, out-house counsel for the hospital system there in Cheyenne, and then did some physician practice work and some other things. Outside of that, I did a lot of litigation, family law, cow cases, oil and gas, trusts and estates, you name it. That firm kind of covered a little bit of everything. As a smaller practice in the state of Wyoming, kind of have to cover a little bit of everything. And as an associate, it teaches you to figure out what you need to know about that area of law or that area of the world very quickly and try to be efficient at it. And I think that skill set has been great as I've switched between various areas of healthcare as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's perfect training for becoming a GC.
It is.
So the role at DaVita, that was kind of a mini GC role?
It was. So my firm merged with a larger firm, and I didn't really want to go work for big law. And so I was kind of in a point where I either made the decision to go work there or, find other opportunities. And I happened to find a message from a recruiter at DaVita, and they were right down the street. I was in downtown Denver, so it was close by. And I was the youngest attorney they had ever hired at the time, I believe. And I think I was somewhere in the ballpark of the 30th or 33rd attorney. And then by the time I left, they were 150 or so, and a large, very large department. And
it's incredible how large they grew.
Yeah, a corporate integrity agreement
after I was there. Yeah. Wow. And so what did you learn in that role?
Everything. I learned how to be a lawyer and how to be a mentor and a manager. I don't think lawyers have a natural skill set to mentor other people or deal with personal, interpersonal issues in people. And so, when I got there, it was two separate smaller divisions that I was covering, and it was a lot of legal work. So I was learning about dialysis, learning about the way they did things from an operations perspective, but you're deep diving into the business. As an outside counsel, a law firm lawyer, you see one piece of something. They find something internally and they want you to go research that issue and give them an opinion on it. This is understand how the business works and find legal solutions to help them get to an end goal. And that was where I kind of started the love for being in-house, and then gradually moved up in the organization. Somebody very closely, Karen Weekly, was my boss at the time. Karen got me into a bunch of different things, and I went through a bunch of the trainings that the operators were going through. So they have DaVita way of management, DaVita way of team, and no other lawyer had ever gone through that before I started doing that. And I did it because I enjoyed my operators and I wanted to learn more about the way they thought. And so it was just a great training ground on what's the psychology of being in-house and how does it work between the people in those practices? And it gives you an empathy for your clients that I don't think I would have gotten otherwise. So that was super, super helpful for me.
Right on. Any surprises in stepping into the role?
Yeah, I mean, I would say some of the surprises that come up are just how much they count on you as the lawyer to help them make those decisions. I think it's easy for anybody to say, especially lawyers are the worst at this, of if these are the facts, then this is the solution that I think you should take, or if these are the facts, then this is, but I'm going to wash my hands of the decision that you make. And when you're in-house, you don't get to make that call, especially as the GC. You don't get to say, you guys make the call, it's this or that. You kind of have to help them get to the right solution. So it's the great thing about healthcare is there's a lot of gray area, and doing the right thing for the patient and for the business is usually the right answer from a legal perspective. So as long as you have a true north, good person perspective, I think you can do well in healthcare for sure.
That's great. DaVita was continues to be a great training ground for in-house lawyers and executives. So many people from there have gone on to, be CEOs of healthcare companies, and we called it spreading ripples. It's a real thing.
I have two former DaVitans at my current location.
Oh, is that right? Yeah,
and I help recruit them in just for that reason. I think it's a great training ground for multi-site operations and for just being a good person and being a good leader. I think it's a great place for that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so then take me through your sort of personal career trajectory at DaVita and how that led to your first GC role.
Sure. So I started out two separate divisions underneath what they called a group general counsel, and I kind of was just learning the business. And then there was a need in Southern California. They lost their group general counsel and were kind of lost. They had a new leader, and I started spending a lot of time there. I got an apartment in Southern California and started spending some time there.
Where'd you get an apartment?
In Orange County in Irvine.
Okay.
And so I got to really dig into the business, and that was when I started doing the leadership trainings and all of that. So I kind of got my chops of really understanding the business and really doing what's right by the business. And then Karen came on as our leader of the department and promoted me to the group general counsel role. I started covering Northern California up through the northern northwest part of the U.S. after that. And I stayed there for 3 or 4 years and just really enjoyed connecting with the leadership team and being on the overall company leadership team and listening to the issues that they were dealing with and helping guide strategy. And that to me was super valuable. Seeing a Fortune 200 business from a strategic perspective and having visibility to the strategy behind all of that and the legal decisions and the tough jump balls that they would go in front of the entire leadership team and everybody would debate which way was the right way to go was an unbelievable place to go learn.
But you didn't stay forever.
I didn't stay forever.
What enticed you away?
COVID happened. And,
Okay.
And so we kind of got out of the office, and then I didn't see a huge path to continue there. There was a really good leadership team that it wasn't like a lot of people were retiring on a regular basis. So when I don't have a path up, I at least started listening to options out there. So my first job that came along was a patient transportation business that was kind of family owned and we're just trying to figure it out. They were thinking about going out for sale and they wanted their first general counsel to come in house. So at the time, it seemed like a great idea. I thought it sounded really interesting. And you go from, I was managing at the time 35 people or so, a bunch of lawyers and a bunch of other great paraprofessionals and admins. And it was just an unbelievable team. We had a great dynamic. Everything was perfect. And then I had one semi-paralegal and one compliance person. And they had contracts in drawers and they had, contracts that nobody had access to and had no idea what kind of legal risks they had. So it was, kind of an interesting business to walk into. I always kind of thought this is going to be great. Being a general counsel is going to be so awesome when I'm going to love it. And I walk in and I'm doing, $500 settlements and trying to figure out what janitorial contracts look like. And I was like, oh man, did I make a mistake going from this, kind of high level strategy to really being in the weeds?
Yeah. And with all the resources that you had in the prior job and now you're a little bit on your own. So
Absolutely.
how did you manage through that?
I start with building blocks. So I like to set out, I interview everybody in the business. So all of the C-suite folks that I interact with, of what do you see this role doing? What was your reason for bringing a general counsel in and understanding all the aspects of the business? So there's obviously your contracts role, and then there's your regulatory role, and then there's your credentialing and safety and quality and risk and compliance and everything else. So I bucket all of that out and kind of build out a spreadsheet for myself on what are the roles that I fit there. And then I go through and figure out what are the regulatory risks in each of those buckets or the business risks in each of those buckets, and then figure it out from there. So it's a 6 or 9 month process of turning over a lot of stones and really understanding the business as best you can. And obviously there's, some dumpster fires that had been burning for some period of time when you walk into just about any business. So you have to manage those while figuring it out. But I really enjoy that process.
What led you then to your next position?
So that company sold, and the company that purchased them had a general counsel. So, as the GC, you kind of almost expect that a lot of the times when a larger company buys you, they already have somebody in that role. So I was exited shortly after that, and then took my next job in Austin in dermatology, completely switching industries, but multi-site operations. It was some former DaVita folks there. So for me, that was a natural fit from a next position perspective.
Tell me about your current role.
So I left there after about a year and I came out to California and have been here for almost 2 years. And I'm with a company called Unio Health Partners. It's a management services organization for a gastroenterology and urology practice, a little bit of radiation oncology and a lot of ancillary businesses underneath that. But we're a management services organization. So it's been an unbelievable. I was the second C-suite hire. They kind of were at a 3-year point where the business had kind of stopped growing and they wanted to bring in a new leadership team. So they hired the HR person, then the lawyer, and then they brought in everybody else. COO, chief development officer, CEO all came in after me. So I kind of had to have faith with the hiring group that they were going to hire somebody that I wanted to work with and that it was going to be a good fit. And Mike, the CEO that they hired, is just been awesome. He came in 5 months after I did and has really brought the team together. He's very DaVitan in the way that he manages and his philosophies around leadership, and has us reading books like I did when I was at DaVita about leadership and management. And so he's creating a culture in the business. It's been great.
What are some of your favorites?
Amy Cuddy has a book, and the name of it escapes me, but it's about leadership, and it is one of my favorite books to read. And it's not one that we read here, but it was one that I read when I was at DaVita. But just the philosophies behind having purpose behind what you do has just been transformational in my leadership for sure.
Nice. And what does your department look like in your current?
So I currently have a vice president, assistant general counsel, who manages a lot of the legal stuff with me. Then I have a compliance officer that handles most of the compliance role. I have a risk, quality, and safety manager. I have payer contracting and a payer contracting manager below them. And I think that's currently it. Yeah.
So you have payer contracting, like from business negotiation standpoint?
From drafting and business negotiation.
Everything. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I've never had to manage that before.
Yeah.
I've obviously touched it in done a lot of payer contracting in previous roles, but not managing it at this level at a physician practice. So it's been an interesting road to get there.
Nice. And how many states do you guys operate in?
Just California.
Okay.
Just California. We're 110 physicians-ish, 200 total providers, 53, 55 sites.
Yeah. And you're looking to expand?
Looking to expand.
Growth. Yeah.
Yeah. I obviously can't disclose anything about that, but we are definitely looking to expand.
Okay, great. So when you look back over your career thus far, because you're, right in the middle of it, but what are sort of the inflection points that you think that was a real accelerator to getting you on your path where you are now?
Sure. Yeah. For me, it was going to DaVita and really understanding the business, understanding how multi-site operations works, because I think a lot of lawyers get into the business of being lawyers. They want to just go do the contract. So they want to just, help you figure out things from a legal perspective. But from my perspective, being a general counsel, you have so much influence on so many things in a business. The way that operators talk to potential targets, the way that operators talk about the business internally can create risk for your organization. So the more that you can learn about training, the more that you can help people with tools. Everybody understands you have to take compliance training, right? But nobody understands why. Nobody understands that there are federal and state law penalties and your payer contracts could get terminated if your entire organization doesn't complete compliance training. People understand that you can't hand a bag of money to a doctor, right? But they don't understand that if they talk about, this person's going to help us close out the market, that you're creating antitrust issues, along with essentially admitting that you may be admitting that you're doing something inappropriate from a compliance perspective. So those are the kind of things that to me have just been super helpful. And I learned a lot of those things going through a corporate integrity agreement at DaVita and having to really deep dive into the psychology of an operator. So that has been huge for me. And then I think going through sales and going through that business side has been really good for me. Just understanding how equity works in a business and how your financials work on the back end is, as a lawyer, you don't typically get into how does finance work and what is the profitability of your business and how does the sale work. And who are the bankers and all of that. And so going through the process, once and hopefully at some point going through it again, it's amazing how much you learn on that front as well.
Yeah. Choosing that first in-house role is so important because the role that you describe, that's not necessarily the case everywhere where you're, truly a business partner and have that opportunity to add value in that way. Did you get lucky or did you do things to discern, and what would you recommend to others in discerning what, when they're taking their first in-house role to make sure it's going to be something that can help them develop as an attorney
Sure.
and as an executive?
Yeah, I think it's all about your manager. It's all about who you work for or with. So, I had a great first manager at DaVita who really helped me get visibility to people. He was very intentional about getting me to be at meetings and to have visibility in front of the operators. And then eventually worked for Brian Stern, who from Radiology Partners.
Sure.
And
Who did you work for first? We'll give a shout out.
David Wolf.
Oh,
Wolf
great.
is
Okay.
now at
Yeah.
myeyedoctor.com as a GC. But Dave was a great manager, really understood the business really well. He had been there for multiple years before I got there. So he was really a good teaching me how the business worked and how, from a legal perspective, we best supported the business. And then Brian came in and Brian taught me how to be a leader, how to be a manager, how to really understand how operators thought and how the business worked. So more than anything, I think the most important thing that I find and what I look for in any new role that I take is who are the people that you work with and the person that you work for. If you don't like either of those groups of people, if your life will be miserable, you might as well go find somewhere else to work. I mean, I can manage a lot of things, but working for people that you don't trust, that people that you don't have belief in is very, very difficult as you continue on in your career. And the success of most businesses it is dependent upon those people being good at their roles, especially at the GC position. So it's very important that you vet. It's not just them vetting you in an interview process. It is you vetting them that it's going to be a good fit, because you can make mistakes. And if you make a mistake, it can set you back a little bit.
Great advice. Great advice. Okay. Let's shift to how you manage to do the job. A lot of competing priorities, people, meetings, internal and external constituents. How do you stay on top of it all?
Yeah. So I have a lot of tracking spreadsheets. One, I have a second attorney that's been very, very helpful in managing something. So like I said, I have my spreadsheet of all of my areas of responsibility. And I say, here's the 3 or 4 that you're going to manage. And everything else is, going to be on my plate, at least on an initial basis. So that's been really helpful is having a second counsel. If you don't have that, what I have to do is get alignment with my manager. So we have weekly one-on-ones. And I say, look, here's what all's being thrown at me. I want to make sure that we are aligned, that if I focus on this and I push this out, that I'm going to get support, right? Because inevitably somebody's going to be mad at you for not responding to emails. In-house, you're going to get 100 to 300 emails a day from everybody at the clinic level, at the C-suite level. From an outsider's perspective, you have multiple contracts that are being negotiated at any given time. You've got transactions. Everything happens all at the same time. So prioritization and understanding how to get through things quickly is key. For me, I can't be perfect at everything, so I don't let perfection get in the way of good. So where I was outside, when I remember this vividly, when I was first a law firm lawyer, is getting a contract from McKesson. And McKesson sends you a 90-page agreement, and you spend, as a first-year associate, you spend 6 hours correcting their grammar and moving things around. And that doesn't make sense for me. And this limitation of liability is too high. And you spend 8 hours doing it, and you send it back to them, and they strike out all of your red lines and say, either you can sign it or you can not sign it.
Yeah.
So understanding, and
Right.
I think that's what you learn as
and you see that in the payer world as well.
Absolutely. And that's why you have to understand how bad the business needs that contract, whether it's a payer contract, whether it's a vendor contract. If there's a secondary provider and you have any leverage at all, you can negotiate very differently than you can with somebody that is take it or leave it. And so you have to understand that up front, or you waste a lot of time doing those things.
So true. Anytime I would tell anybody listening who's an in-house lawyer, anytime you get a contract review, there's a bunch of questions you got to ask upfront for context.
Yeah.
You can't just start marking it up, right?
Absolutely.
I remind myself of that.
Yeah. I have a basic list of things that I want the operators to manage first before they send it to me. Who are the parties? What is the payment? Have you negotiated that rate at all? And then just some other basics, right? If you talked about how this is going to work, do you have SLAs for them to be able to hold them to if the contract fails? Because most of the time when you get a vendor contract, they don't want any requirements on their side.
Yeah.
So what I have trained them on is go out and figure out what are the things that you need to happen in the contract and negotiate that stuff up front before you send it to me, or otherwise it's going to slow down this process because then I have to go to you and figure out what those things are. Then I have to go back to the vendor. So that's been super helpful for me too.
That's great. Yeah. And it's helped me help you, because what do the business people want? They want speed of execution. And
Absolutely.
so you're teaching them how to speed things up.
Absolutely. And sometimes you just have to take a risk. Sometimes there are contract clauses that you otherwise in an ideal world would never agree to. And you have to understand that from a business perspective, sometimes you have to just agree to it and hope it doesn't, nothing goes wrong. It's very few. It's, 1% of contracts that ever have a major issue in them.
Right.
And you hope that reasonable people can come to a termination agreement at the end. But on occasion, there is enough risk that you have to push back even on the ones that,
it's funny. It's funny. I feel like I'm always on that side of things. Maybe because I haven't worked for McKesson or a payer where it's like, hey, this is the contract, take it or leave it.
Well, I'll tell you, years later, I had McKesson send me a contract, and there were 3 other vendors that were slightly cheaper that were providing the exact same contract. And I knew those McKesson lawyers very well. And I called them. I set up a call the first day and I said, this is going to be the one agreement where I'm going to redline it and you guys are going to accept every single change that I make. And their faces were just like, oh man.
They're not used to that. Yeah. I mean, there were times in the payer world working for DaVita was some of the most satisfying work because, there'd have to be a negotiation.
Absolutely.
Which a lot of the payers weren't used to. So how do you manage the competing demands of being a legal advisor, a business partner, and a corporate leader?
Oh, man, that's a very philosophical, deep question. Like I said, I always look at my true north of being a good person. So for me, if you do the right things from a business perspective, you do the right things because the people that are underneath you that look up to you as a leader, when they see that you're doing the right thing, it's not necessarily just the right thing from business perspective. Oh, I'm going to make $5 million on this contract. If you do the right thing, everybody else has trust and belief in you as a leader. And so my approach has always been treat everybody as if they're a patient in your clinics. That's why I do this. And the only reason why I decided to be in healthcare is it is so important, and people are at their most vulnerable when they have to go to a hospital or they have to go to a physician practice or they otherwise have to subject themselves to our American healthcare system, which is, can be tough at times. And so I always like to look at it from a leader, from a business perspective, and everything else is how do I best serve the patient? And as long as you view the world that way, you can usually find yourself in the right way from a regulatory, from a legal perspective as well.
Yeah, it's so true. And, I can't help but think that the provider community can do even more to put, lawyers to put themselves in the shoes of the patient. I mean, they walk in, they get an iPad with, 19 pages of documents to sign. That's sort of in order to be seen by the doctor. Absolutely. They don't know what they're, it's like as a patient and, as a father of daughters who, now a couple of them are of, are of legal age where they're going and signing their own documents. It's like, you really start to think like, how can we make this more fair and hospitable to our patients? And, we're in a position where we can do that rather than just continuing the status quo.
Absolutely. And
any thoughts on that?
You combat it against, in the state of California, God love them, is a very difficult state to operate any business.
Yeah. But
from a regulatory perspective, you balance that same thing with, I have 25 requirements that I have to put in the intake paperwork, or otherwise I can't collect the amount of money that we're going to charge them for it. You also have to balance that the system does not lend itself to being easy for the patient in any way. And it's definitely not easy for the doctor being in the middle. And that's why being in an MSO to me is such a great place, is because we can allow the physicians to not deal with this stuff, right? They're used to going out and saying, how much money am I owed? And is this MA unhappy, or what's going on? We can manage all of that stuff for them and let them do their work. And we can manage all of that stuff and manage all of the disruptive patients or the other problems that they may have, and take that stress off of them for them to be able to continue to provide great care to the patients.
That's really well said. It's enough for us to deal with that stuff. I can't imagine anybody who went to medical school with the hope of, spending a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, if you
immersed in that.
see the reimbursement rates over the last 10 years and the independent physician practice,
Yeah.
the rate is steadily decreasing, and every year you have to pay your staff more, and you have to, you're getting cuts from Medicare, and you have to pay for increased rent and everything else. And so it's more difficult now than any other time to be in an independent model than it is to go work for, one of the big players, go work for Kaiser or go work for UCSD or something, because you don't ever have to deal with it. You get your paycheck and you go home. But being in independent practice is really, really difficult right now.
With that squeeze that you're describing, like, what's the way out?
Well, I'm going to put my business development hat on, and I would say join with a practice that can help you. A platform like ours, that it's a larger group of physicians that join together, and we get better contract rates. And so, that's not the only reason to do it, but when you have the resources to be able to get pulled off of you and share some of those legal, RCM, and all the other expenses that those physicians have, and you share it across 100 people, it becomes a little bit cheaper than doing it on your own. And so, my view is, unless you're going to join with a larger practice, I think it's very, very difficult to do it on your own these days.
Yeah. And especially with all the changes in technology and the investments necessary to take advantage of, what's coming down the pike, AI and otherwise.
Absolutely. Yeah. You see, when we get into practices, these small physician practices, they've never had a lawyer. And if they ever needed a lawyer, it was go negotiate this payer contract or deal with the sale of my practice. But they're not talking to them on a regular basis, and their paperwork doesn't comply with state law. Their thought process doesn't comply with federal law.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, the business of healthcare is so complex that doing it on your own is practically impossible. So, sorry, I was just going to say, to your point of AI.
That's where I was going to go next.
The other one that's been helping me a lot is a business called GCAI. And so I was on LinkedIn one day and saw a message from Ashton Kutcher that said, if you're a general counsel, everybody should be using this platform. And I thought to myself, what does Ashton Kutcher know about becoming a general counsel in any form or fashion? And why would I listen to him? But I clicked on the button anyway, and it gives you a free 7-day trial. And I just tried it, and I tried it in really weird ways. Like, tell me something about California law that was very, very, very specific. And the answer was pretty good. Yeah. So I've been using it for, 6 months now.
Okay.
And I can tell you on some things, and it's not perfect. You can't say, take these 5 contracts and blend them into one. It's not going to get you to that level yet. But for day to day, hey, draft this letter. You can add in the document and say, hey, send a termination letter for this. It will draft it for you. You can copy and paste it into Word and get it out. It's the simplicity of it cuts out, for me, probably 5 or 6 hours a week.
Yeah, it's crazy. Not that this is going to be a commercial for GCAI, but I use it as well. I'm familiar with it. And it's a real game changer in terms of, what you referred to earlier, when you're coming up in your career and you're expected to know something about, everything. And how do you become a super learner in that regard? I see tools like GCAI helping the human who's using it get up to speed quickly. So not as a replacement, but as a tool. And I think it's got a lot of potential.
I agree with you. I hope that the law firm model adopts it at some point in the near future, and it becomes more efficient to send things outside. Because as you're aware, there are things that are, from a regulatory perspective, me as a GC saying is totally fine, or I think it's fine, is not going to hold weight if it's ever looked at. So you have to go to your outside counsel and get an opinion about this. And they're still spending the same amount of time doing the same amount of research and drafting a 10-page letter versus being able to use that platform and a platform similar to that as a starting point. obviously, to be able to speed that process up. I just haven't seen that adoption from.
Yeah, totally. We're using it at my firm. We act as outside GCs to healthcare companies, and so
Sure.
we have the same incentives as you do in your role of being, doing that more efficiently,
Sure.
making sure we're not missing something. And in the hands of an experienced practitioner, it provides great leverage.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
100% agree.
that's great. So again, like I would say you're mid-career, right?
I'm hoping end of career, but that's between you and
But my point being, you have a lot of potential to go still. But here you are looking back. If you could talk to, a younger Bart Peach when you're, say, at the law firm looking to move in house, someday want to be a GC, what advice would you give yourself?
get to know your business people better. If you can do it, if you're at a law firm and you can do it for free, go sit in the business offices and understand what everybody on that C-suite does. Go interview your business, because until you understand what they do, you can't give them good advice. And that process, in my opinion, that process leads to you understanding the business better, which will suit you very well in going into that role. In an interview, to be able to get it, you can't just say, I'm great at being a lawyer, right? Everybody could say that in an ideal world, everybody could say that. But you can't say, I understand how this role interacts with finance. I understand how the finance of your business works. And let me tell you how I can help you on that front. And those are the things that, from my personal experience, have changed the way that interviewers look at me in taking new jobs. Because to your point, I'm a little younger than most people. I know you started at this very young as well. They tend to discount you when you don't have as many gray hairs as some other candidates. So it's great to have that level of experience and really understand the business better than others. And you may get in when you otherwise wouldn't.
Great advice. What do you like to do when you're not being a GC?
Well, I chase a toddler around most days. That's pretty much my full-time role. I used to play a lot of golf and do a lot of hiking and try to get out and enjoy nature. But these days it's mostly just doing whatever he wants to do. So a lot of painting and a lot of cleaning up.
Are you in Orange County?
I'm in LA. I'm in Redondo Beach.
Oh, great. Okay. South Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great place to be. What are you most looking forward to?
For me professionally, what I really want to do is get into a role where I can go help the businesses that haven't had a GC before and really just help organize them. I think doing this more than a few times now, there are so many, not corners that you can cut, but things that you can fast track to organize your business and help cut out, 50 or 70% of the risks that small businesses that don't have a GC have. So my goal is eventually, to get into a consulting role or get into, something similar to what you do and come in and help out for high level risk issues. And then hopefully get them prepared if they do decide that they want their first general counsel, get them organized, because I've walked into a bunch of dumpster fires and it would be nice to just have one where they go, here's where all the contracts are and here's the software that we use to manage them. And just have that baseline when you walk in, because I think from a transition perspective, the value to any business would be so much more than what it would cost you to create that system up front and have it ready for the GC. And it will bring their stress levels down by, half over the first 9 months of the role.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Well, I have a lot of desire to have a follow-up conversation with you and our checklists and sort of continue to build that out, because I share that, and that's kind of what General Counsel West is about for companies that don't yet have a GC. So when they hire their first GC, somebody's, inheriting something they're really step into rather than creating it from scratch.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to give away the special sauce too much, but I do something called a future sale roadmap. And I say, if your sale is 3 to 5 years from now, here's the process. Because most people don't understand what that process looks like. You have to do this, this, and this, and then you get to HSR, and then you have to go through OCA in California. And people don't understand what that does. But what that does is up front, it lets them know what their risks are when the sale happens at some point down the road, around communication, around document tracking, around all your HR records and everything else. So it gets your entire C-suite and your organization aligned with, at some point, we're going to have to organize all of this stuff and present it to the buyer. And so it's been, for me, has been hugely helpful in the last couple of roles.
Well, I think it was Gandhi, but we probably think of a certain CEO at a certain dialysis company who would always, hammer home, begin with the end in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
100%.
true in so many ways.
And
So
it's hard to do. It's so difficult as anybody in an organization. I look at the people on my team and they come in and you're trying to learn the business and there's 1,000 things coming on your plate and there's 100 emails a day. It's so easy to get caught up in chasing cars every day versus sticking your head up and saying, how am I going to move this business forward? What is valuable to the business long-term for me to be able to do? And setting clear goals has been something for me that I learned at DaVita and was kind of forced to do that has been so unbelievably helpful for me when I'm in a GC role kind of by myself.
Right. That was the drumbeat. How are you being proactive? Are you, carving out time on your calendar for that? Because if you're not, you're never going to get to it.
Yep. And you can work 24 hours a day, or you can work 12 hours a day, or you can work 8 or 9 efficient hours a day and be okay. So I think for most people, it becomes overwhelming, especially when you get into a new GC role, because there's so much and it's very easy to work 10, 12-hour days. And if you have a family like I do, it's practically impossible. You cannot keep up with 12-hour days and keep your family happy at home. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
So
not for very long.
No, not for very long. So you have to kind of learn. I had an opportunity come up and the CEO told me, it's going to be like a 7-year slog, but there's a huge pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But right now we're working 80 to 100 hours a week and I'm seeing my kids for 4 hours on the weekends. And I'm like, I like money. Everybody likes to be comfortable from a financial perspective, but it's not worth what that would do to my family for that amount of money. I'll make it in other ways. So I think it's prioritizing yourself, your health, and your family and your faith and everything else that is extremely important for you to show up in an authentic way at work as well.
We're very like-minded. Yeah. So I appreciate your sharing that. I think more people need to hear it. And being, a high-performing GC in an important role, et cetera, does not mean that you have to sacrifice everything else. Should not mean that you have to sacrifice anything else. If it does, you're doing it wrong.
Absolutely. And I think law firm folks that come in-house what you have always heard is, I'm working too hard, I'm doing too much, and I want to go in-house and take an easier job. And I can tell you, it's just as busy in-house. If you allow it to be, it's just as busy in-house as it is being a law firm lawyer. So understanding how to become efficient and how to manage your role in the right way up front will save you years of gray hairs.
Unintentionally, you're now putting a plug in for my Inside Counsel Academy business.
There you go.
So that's exactly what we try to do, is help people be more effective and efficient in that role, because I've seen, it can take over your whole life. And if you aren't paying attention, years can pass and you're not where you want to be. So begin with the end in mind. All those good things, super important in the in-house context, not something we're trained for in law school or at a law firm, or otherwise. So thank you for that. It's been a real pleasure having you on. Thank you so much, Bart.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's great.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed our time with Bart Peach. I know I did. Few key things I'll take from this episode are: number 1, embrace change and efficiency. Be open to leveraging new technologies like AI to help support the quality of your work as well as your own sustainability. Number 2, only work for people you trust. That's important in any role, but especially when you're serving as someone's general counsel. And number 3, until you understand your client's motivations, their fears, and their business, you really can't provide world-class advice. So be willing to invest the time with them so you truly understand. Okay, until next time, this is Joe Scholl. For more tips on accelerating your path to becoming a world-class general counsel, subscribe to my newsletter at InsideCounselAcademy.com and connect with me directly on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming the GC. Whether you're preparing for the GC role or looking to sharpen your skills as a sitting general counsel, we hope this episode offered valuable insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Explore more resources and join our community at InsideCounselAcademy.com. Please tune in next time for more insights and inspiring stories from successful legal leaders.